Hello, incredible soul. I am Anna Fink, the wellness architect, and I was just traveling last week to Florida for a personal growth conference and a client experience. And I want to share some of my travel tips because I get a lot of questions on how do I stay healthy and maintain my devotion to my lifestyle, my nutrition, my diet when I'm traveling. So I want to share a bit about that because a lot of people use traveling as the excuse to go off of their diet, to indulge, to eat the foods they don't normally eat. And then little do they know that they're depleting their immune system. They're maybe feeding pathogens with certain health hindering foods that they're consuming. And there's this whole notion that, oh, we'll just indulge, live a little. But I'd rather honor my body and honor my lifestyle standards and preferences so I can live completely, so I can live fully, radiantly healthy, vibrantly strong, confidently empowered in my body, in my life. And I see it as this excuse to just go off and eat whatever you want, drink whatever you want. Oh, it's vacation, just have fun. But I have more fun when I am honoring my body and I am eating the foods that I know make me feel good, that energize me naturally, that support clear skin, that support my health, that support the clarity and the cognition. Because I've decided that I am no longer going to make it an excuse. I'm going to make it the reason. I eat healthy because so that I can travel instead of I just go off and I indulge when I'm traveling because it's easier. But actually eating healthy isn't hard. We've just been conditioned to believe that it's hard. And there's this quote that says, if you don't make time for your health won't make time for you. And that is frankly something that I'm seeing a lot of people are just taking their health for granted. They're dealing with symptoms that they've normalized, so they don't think much about them. But for those who have more pronounced symptoms, more debilitating chronic illness, that's not even an option because that one little indulgence can quite literally make a difference in wellness or illness and how one feels the next hour after that. So for me, while many people might think, oh, that's radical, I could never do that, that's extreme, I call it responsible. I call it devoted because yes, there's discipline in it, but it's devotion to my health, to my body, to my becoming. And when we're making these changes, when we're charting new territory, when we're choosing a new path for ourselves, we're going to be confronted with a lot of discomfort, a lot of resistance. Of course, we want to just go and revert to what's familiar and what's comfortable. But we have to be willing to walk the path that few have walked before us because we are the leaders. And I find this so interesting because even myself, like I did start eating foods. They're not unhealthy. It was just like I was traveling. I went to my favorite restaurant and then I had a little bit more fat, which, as you know, I don't do a lot of dietary fat. And then that fat creates this adrenaline rush and this addiction. And then it's like, oh, my body's craving that. My body's not craving it. It's just the addiction to the adrenaline that I start to hold on to. And then it's like, oh, getting back into the routine. And so starting is always the hardest part. But what I found is that when we start and we overcome that resistance, because when we make a decision to change, we're going to be confronted with all of the limiting beliefs, all the thoughts of why I shouldn't do it, and all of these things that are actually limiting us. And it's important for us to remember that that's not actually true and that it's all the more reason to commit and go in. So it's in those moments where you want to quit and you're like, no, I can't, I don't know how to do it, that you want to recommit. And the resistance, it's hard. It's hard to create a new path. It's hard to change, but we think changing ourselves and changing our lives is this, oh, once I get there, I'll feel great. But it's the journey in every moment, the choice point in every moment of does this align with the version I am becoming, with the vision I hold for myself, or does this bring me into a different state of being, a different state of feeling, a different state of confidence, my old self? Is this calibrating me to my new identity or reverting me back to my old identity? When we start to see decisions like that, it becomes much easier to clarify. It's like we want the beautiful, fit, strong tone, lean body, but then we want to go and we want to indulge in all these foods that prevent that, that hinder the progress. And one thing for me, there are so many things that I do when I travel. So let's start with the beginning. On the travel day, I wake up, I commit to my morning rituals, I move my body, I meditate, I hydrate, I do all of that. I really want to be mindful to get all of my steps in. And then I pack my own food. So I've nourished my body, I've hydrated, I focus on the cleansing, healing foods, and then I go to the airport and I have a bag of food. I always bring my own snacks. I find that I want to minimize my exposure to the radiation. So I ask that they don't put them through the scanner. I also don't want to eat the irradiated food, and it's likely not organic. They use a lot of seed oils, a lot of GMO products in those airport foods. So I'd rather just mitigate that at all costs. Then what I do is I opt out of the security scanner. That's another factor of radiation. That's another influence of all this radiation coming into our bodies that's compounding illness, that's hindering our health. So I always opt out and I opt for a pat down. Now that this is something you can do, and if you're someone who's dealing with symptoms and conditions and illness, you'll want to do it too, because these symptoms, these conditions, these illnesses are not normal. They're very common, and radiation is one of these huge health factors. It's silent but deadly. It really impacts our cell, our DNA structure, our cognitive clarity, everything, our liver health, our brain function. Radiation is a silent factor that's really impacting our health in a myriad of ways. And it's important to be aware of all the sources of radiation, whether it's your phone, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth devices, radiation from the plane, radiation from the security scanners, from x-rays, telephone poles, power lines, etc. So there are so many different factors at play, and the more we reclaim our health and reclaim our power, the more we discern what we want to expose ourselves to, because there are certain things in the environment that we don't have control over, but then there are certain things that we do. And there are ways to mitigate and minimize it. So once I've done that, something I do when I'm traveling and always when I go to the bathroom is to wash my hands first. Because isn't it interesting that we go to the bathroom, but we don't wash our hands before going to the bathroom and touching those very sensitive parts of ourselves and exposing ourselves to more pathogens through that contact. So I wash my hands. I then flush the toilet. I put toilet paper in the toilet so it doesn't splatter and increase, contact with different pathogens that might already be in there. I also cover the toilet seat and I try not to sit on. I hover. So that's something to do just to mitigate and minimize exposure to pathogens, because when we're traveling, we're exposed to a lot of people. We're breathing the same air in the airplane. I love to high dose my supplements on travel days. So the zinc, B12, lemon balm's amazing for the nerves, for stress, for the body. Then I love to incorporate more vitamin C, lysine, all of those are really good to take. And then I love to have my snacks. So I'll have my adrenal snacks. This helps my adrenals and regulate the stress. I also love to move my body. So in the airport, I am walking, I am moving. I'm really mindful of not sitting too much. And then when I'm in the plane and I don't have a lot of space to move about, I am always doing these little calf raises. So my feet are on the floor and I just pump the blood, pump my muscles, the lymphatic system. And that helps. I always meditate when I'm on the plane. So there's this transcendental meditation that I do. It's a 20-minute sit, which is equivalent to like 4 hours of sleep. And as I'm seated on the plane, I feel myself just resting. I feel my body down regulating. My nervous system is regulating. I feel more rested, more peaceful, more present. And that's something that I love to do while I'm traveling. It also helps the body to adjust to a new time zone. And I love to meditate on, excuse me, on the plane, but then also at the airport if I need, when I can't take a nap. And that's kind of what I do while traveling in the airport and in the plane. And then I love to read, I love to journal, I love to create when I'm up in the sky. It's like the zoomed out perspective. I see the cities, I see homes, but it's from such a large, high vantage point that everything that feels like a big quote unquote problem is not actually a problem. It's just so much smaller than we realize, but we zoom so far in to the perceived problem and make it bigger and then feel like it's so insurmountable. But then when we get on the plane, it provides perspective and we see that it's not actually a big problem at all. When I get to where I'm going, I always go to the grocery store. I stock up on my favorites like coconut water, lemons, bananas, apples, oranges, leafy greens, spinach, all of these, and I stock my hotel room or Airbnb, whatever it is where I'm staying, with my essentials. And sometimes there's a blender, sometimes there's not. I also do research before I arrive at my destination to make sure there's a juice bar close by, or I'll buy cold pressed juices so that I get my green juice. I get my melon. I do my same morning rituals, my radiance rituals. I rise, I hydrate, I move my body, I go for a sunrise walk. Sometimes I go to the gym or a Pilates class, something like that. And then I journal and meditate and do all of my rituals because most people will throw their rituals and wellness routines out the window when traveling, but that's the time to double down. So for me, those are non-negotiable. That helps me stay anchored and grounded in myself and in my power. And then I love to focus on that fat-free morning, eating living clean foods that are hydrating, that are living and nourishing and alkalizing is so powerful and amazing. I always love to get in the nature wherever I am. It's like, okay, can I go for a hike? Can I do this? Just let my body ground. I also love gua sha or lymphatic drainage after travel and really hydrating with lemon water and coconut water after. I also forgot to mention this, but I do bring lemons with me on the plane. So I always squeeze lemons into my bottled water or into the filtered water that I've found, whatever it is. But we want to bring more living water into our bodies so that our cells are hydrated, and that's amazing for radiance, for digestion. This is something that I've done and found that I have an easier time traveling now because I used to suffer from chronic digestive health issues and specifically constipation. And I would go travel and they would get exacerbated. I wasn't hydrating, I wasn't eating the right foods, I was burdening my liver, and I would go days and days without pooping. And that felt so uncomfortable and miserable. Now I'm so regular, I eliminate multiple times a day. I don't have to worry about that. So that's something that is so powerful and so transformational, and I love it. What else do I love to do on my travels? There are so many good things. I mean, it really is about knowledge and power and having these tools and these tips because eating healthy isn't actually hard. It's just making the effort and setting time intentionally beforehand because that's what creates the magic. That's what allows you to thrive during those times. So for me, I I find that traveling has become so easy and effortless, but before it was harder. It felt harder. Like I just didn't do it as well. And now that I know my body and I know what I need, I do it. So I'm excited for you to experience this and take whatever it is you want with you and know that you can just do it your way. You get to decide, you get to choose. And these are just some of my favorite travel tips. These are some of the ways that I really support my body while traveling to regulate my nervous system. I feel like I'm forgetting something, and that's why I'm like searching. But for now, that's pretty much what I do. And it's amazing to travel because the thing is like fastest food, like we all go for fast food or do this because it's easy, but actually fruit is actually faster, easier, and cheaper and healthier. So having the bananas, having these foods that really support the nervous system, support the adrenals, that's key when traveling. And knowing this, empowering yourself with the tools, the truth, and the information, you can heal and experience radiant health while traveling, as well as supporting your immune system. Because when you're traveling, all the excess stress or change in environment and sleep patterns can really lower the immune system. So we want to make sure we're creating that alkaline environment through the foods we're eating, through the hydration we are consuming. So I hope this lands with you and supports you in your travels, in your health journey, and I look forward to seeing you soon.